In this episode of Occult Unmasked, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into the David Bowie mystery surrounding his death. David Bowie had a Tumblr page proving that he was inspired by some very dark, macabre imagery. David Bowie wore his Kabbalah uniform in the Lazarus video. Thank you for watching. David Bowie had a Tumblr. It was called the Villa of Orman. It was posted it started in November of 2015, I believe, and it ended December 10th of 2015. And David Bowie definitely could use the internet. He was not technologically unsavvy. He definitely was very intelligent when it came to the internet. So here's the first photo he posted. Unfortunately, Tumblr doesn't have dates, but someone dated it to late November, early December. All of these posted. And they're very depressing, most of them black and white. Bowie was contemplating death. And here's an interesting photo of Hell's Cafe in Paris. An actual cafe in Paris called Hell's Cafe. And I can't imagine why it was shut down. Who wouldn't want to visit hell? It was definitely an interesting themed restaurant. A hell-themed restaurant. That is pretty depressing. And here you can see the patrons smiling as these what look like angels and demonic entities are scattered throughout the ceiling and wall. And here is a solitary candle with time running out. It's the type of picture David Bowie is posting because he's really depressed. But I love you, said the knife to the wound. Just really depressing, dark things. Here's a dolmen. A dolmen is kind of like Stonehenge, but it's an ancient druidic Celtic circle or semicircle, or even just a couple stones with a stone on top of it for a burial ritual that the ancient druids participated in. And here are some dark circle patterns, possibly inspiring Black Star to a certain extent. And just a lot of black and white image. Now, this image was posted before December 10th. 2015, and it exactly matches the closing scene of the David Bowie Lazarus video. Here's Bowie at the end of the Lazarus video. This video was posted on January 7th. This Tumblr photograph was posted late November, early December of 2015. So this predates the video, proving and connecting that David Bowie was involved with this Tumblr. I personally believe David Bowie most definitely created this Tumblr himself, or he collected the images and asked someone to put it together. Either way, the name of the Tumblr is the Villa of Orman, which didn't exist prior to Bowie's first single off the album Black Star. Here is the Black Star, or an eclipsed sun, and if you scroll up you can see the Black Star at the eclipsed sun. There are way too many connections. Here is the skull and the candle on the table. It's easy to find. There it is, the skull and the table. But most definitely this is created by Bowie's people or David Bowie himself. Here's another dolmen, which is a burial, an ancient burial site for the druids, the Celtic druids. Here's some poison. Bowie's obviously contemplating death, the last few months of his life, and he made this just out of the same reason any Tumblr user posts pictures. It's a blog, but it's a photographic blog. And here's more like a Stonehenge type thing, and here's a albino raven or crow, and then he reposts this picture again, which most definitely not only mimics but is the inspiration for the beginning and the end of the Lazarus video. There's no doubt about it, it's the inspiration. Here's the last scene in the video, and here is this picture posted twice before the video drops by at least a month, or around a month. So this is very interesting. Bowie had many inspirations. Here's a GIF from a Marilyn Manson video. The Villa of Ormond was a sentence that didn't exist prior to the Black Star song that David Bowie wrote. So he knew people would eventually find this Tumblr, because Villa and Ormond, they originate from two different languages. They don't go together. Ormond is Norwegian, Villa is Spanish, and they don't go together naturally. So you're not going to find anything called Villa or Ormond without it being David Bowie related. Feel free to search, but you'll find the Norwegian definition, but you're not going to find anything that isn't Bowie related, most likely, except on searches that don't make any sense. What I want to start this video off with is, yes, David Bowie had a Tumblr, the villaoformond.tumblr.com. But what I wanted to mention was not this, as this has been mentioned before. I will mention this and go through this. And I will mention how this is the main inspiration for the end of the Lazarus video and the beginning of the Lazarus video. But what I want to first mention is the costume David Bowie is wearing. David Bowie could have chosen any of his iconic costumes throughout his amazing career, but he chose the Kabbalah costume. This is Kabbalah Bowie. The reason this has been coined David Bowie's Kabbalah costume is because during a photo shoot in the 70s, David Bowie wore this costume, and it's obviously the exact same costume. There's no doubt about it that that costume is the same as this costume. In the photo shoot, David Bowie draws the Kabbalah Tree of Life. He draws it on the back of the wall, he draws it on the floor, and it looks like there's a question mark here, and then he kind of scribbles over it. We don't know how seriously David Bowie practiced the Kabbalah. It could have been literally a phase that lasted 2 weeks. We don't know. But most definitely he read about it. And here is the Kabbalah Tree of Life. And here is the Black Magic Tree of Death. They're literally the exact same thing. And so I don't want to bash any religion, but I will say that black magic practitioners, and I'm not one of them, I just simply have read books on the subject because I believe knowledge is power, and the more you know, the better you're off, having a rounded education concerning the many different layers and aspects of this world. One of those aspects is black magic, whether you believe it's real or not. According to black magic practitioners, and here are names of different demons, the Tree of Death looks exactly the same as the Tree of Life that the Kabbalists practice. I don't know how deeply Bowie practiced the Kabbalah, but it looks like he could definitely, from a Kabbalah book or from memory, probably off the book, draw the Tree of, you could see he's drawing the Tree of Life right here. The Tree of Life involves meditating and communicating with your higher self in Kabbalah. In black magic, it involves meditating and communicating with demonic entities. As far as whether you believe those angels or demons are real or just part of your subconscious, really depends on your religious belief or your spiritual belief or your spiritual awareness. Many black magic practitioners say that these demonic entities are real, and many say that they're not. So that's the difference between atheistic black magic practitioners and more like agnostic black magic practitioners. Yeah, I didn't know there were so many different types of black magic users until I thoroughly researched it. These are demons, and according to Kabbalah, these are angels. I can give my opinion, and it's strictly my opinion, and please do not say, oh, that's totally wrong. You know, your opinion is your opinion is your opinion. And my opinion is black magic and Kabbalah are one and the same. Now, black magic practitioners will say that, oh, there is a light side and a dark side. You can communicate with angels or demons. But what if, and I present this, what if the angels and the demons are the exact same entities, putting on a different costume and putting on a different mask, playing the role of a different character? I'm going to make a video on the attributes of demons, spirits, familiar spirits. And in that video, it's basically going to say they are shapeshifters. They're genius entities that have lived thousands upon thousands, if not millions of years, if not billions of years, with a B. And to think a human that has lived a couple years, I mean, we've literally lived the lifespan of a gnat compared to these entities. If they exist, which I do believe they do. The only reason I believe these invisible entities exist is because I've had contact with them. But I'll talk about that in some other video, and I already have. Check out my other videos. You will see me mentioning it. But let me just do a brief analysis. This is a genius video, genius song that Bowie left us. It's his legacy. It's his farewell song. But this character, this woman, this creepy woman, what's she doing in his closet? I'll tell you what she's doing in his closet. This woman in the music video represents a familiar spirit. Some people can see their familiar spirits. Some people can't. Actually, most people can't. So here's Bowie with the blindfold, with the button eyes, really concerned and trying to get over his terminal cancer. And then here's this creepy woman again. She's under his bed. What's this creepy woman doing in his closet? What's she doing under his bed? I'll tell you what she's doing under his bed and in his closet. She is the representation of the boogeyman. Now, the boogeyman is fictional and it's not real, unless you're looking at it from an occult perspective. In the occult perspective, this is David Bowie's familiar spirit. I can tell you, everyone, according to the occult, has a familiar spirit assigned to you from birth. I have a familiar spirit, you have one, according to the occult, and according to what I've personally found out from first-hand experience. Now, this first-hand experience is not provable. Someone once said, how come you don't prove any of this stuff? Well, the definition of occult is hidden. Hidden so deeply, it's almost impossible to prove. So even attempting to prove something, that's not going to happen. Occult Unmasked is a show about the occult and unmasking the occult. And when you combat the occult, you almost have to combat it from an occultic perspective. And they can't provide proof, and you can't provide proof, and no proof is being provided. Here is this familiar spirit. And when you're closer to death, perhaps you have a heightened sense of being able to see or sense or feel or know that your familiar spirit is there. Perhaps this character is David Bowie representing that he knows he has a familiar spirit, and his familiar spirit, he's writing, he's inspired and he's writing at his desk. This familiar spirit is underneath his desk. She's like pointing at him like a creepy point. She knows he's there. Perhaps she's representing, she knows that Bowie's gonna die. Maybe she is Bowie's Black Star. Elvis Presley made a song called Black Star. Now, I can't play the audio, but check out this video. It's called Elvis Presley Black Star 1960. And this song, let's get the lyrics. Every man has a black star over his shoulder. And when a man sees his black star, he knows his time has come. So the black star represents almost an angel of death. And and this is a very obscure Elvis Presley song. I can see David Bowie being a Presley fan. Maybe not the hugest Presley fan in the world, but I know that David Bowie's idol was John Lennon. And I know that John Lennon's idol, or at least one of them, was Elvis Presley. And David Bowie was such an idol of John Lennon that I can see him researching Elvis Presley and coming across this obscure song. And I believe this song is the main inspiration for David Bowie's Black Star, as it obviously relates to someone close to death. Tony Visconti, the producer, said that he read the lyrics and immediately asked Bowie if this was his farewell album, and that Bowie basically laughed and basically admitted, yes, it is. And Tony, in an article I believe posted today, said, by the Rolling Stone magazine, said that Bowie was planning an album after Black Star. So Bowie was always constantly working. His ex-wife said that he's a workaholic. Bowie, when I say he had 26 studio albums, that's what it says on Wikipedia, but I looked at his catalog and it's closer to 50 albums. Bowie has so many albums, it's hard to keep track, from soundtracks to you name it. But I definitely believe this character represents Bowie's familiar spirit, and the lyrics have already been deciphered by many people. I don't need to go through the lyrics, but I will say this. So Jimmy Fallon, being the guy that he is, assumes everything revolves around him, assumed that David Bowie was referencing him in his Lazarus video. I don't believe that's the case, but it's possible, because he did write for Jimmy, but Jimmy's not the only person on the face of the earth. So what I thought was interesting was this. Let's hear what Jimmy Fallon has to say about it.
For Jimmy.
For Jimmy.
Now look over here. There's a picture, a drawing of me, and it says, "Help me."
And Jimmy Fallon says, there's a drawing of me, and it says, "Help me." You know, Jimmy Fallon, you are quite the egomaniac if you think that's you. That is clearly a drawing of David Bowie, not of Jimmy Fallon. And just to illustrate that it is a drawing of David Bowie, you can tell it's a drawing of David Bowie because of the hair. The hair is clearly the hair David Bowie has in the video, sticking straight up. It's hair sticking straight up. Now, last I checked, Jimmy Fallon, your hair didn't stick straight up. So I just wanted to make that clear and point that out, that Jimmy Fallon is a bit of an egomaniac, borderline potentially sociopath, because he assumes everything involves him, when it's pretty clear that the "help me" is David Bowie sort of making light of the fact that he's near the end of his life, and he's just drawing a depressing drawing. And perhaps that "For Jimmy" was about Jimmy, because where did this photograph come from? I mean, this photograph was probably emailed directly to Jimmy, and that's how he even has it. Because Jimmy does claim Bowie did email him occasionally, because Jimmy did say that Bowie did email him occasionally, and I can take a guess at what those emails were like. The emails were like this: "David Bowie, please come on my show." And David Bowie was like, "No, I'm good." That's probably the gist of a lot of the emails between Jimmy and Bowie. Bowie was a very private person, especially in his later years. And here is Bowie exiting in the closet, and here is the Villa of Ormond picture which inspired it. And as far as the Kabbalah, I will cover the Kabbalah in a future episode, but I want to have a fine line of not bashing religion, looking at it from a deeper perspective. Rest in peace, David Bowie. Unlike the Vigilant Christian, who posted an extremely disrespectful video, and I'm not going to watch it, I'm just going to show you the thumbnail. Look at this thumbnail. That's extremely disrespectful, Vigilant Christian. Because Vigilant Christian puts a picture of Bowie with flames and says, "Is David Bowie going to hell?" And then he, throughout the 8-minute and 53-second video, obviously claims that Bowie is going to hell. Vigilant Christian, you are not in a place to judge who's going to hell and who is not going to hell. Only God is in that place. Only the Supreme Being, only the Judge of the universe is in that position. And you, Vigilant Christian, are not in that position. In my opinion, David Bowie went to a higher dimension. The same higher dimension that even the Vigilant Christian will go to. As far as this Kabbalah reference, I'm not sure what to make of it, other than perhaps Bowie was seeking out spiritual Kabbalah-type rituals before he passed on. Only those extremely close to Bowie would really know. There's no doubt that this is the Kabbalah Bowie costume, and this is the Kabbalah Bowie costume recreated for this video. I was able to acquire an autograph from David Bowie, signed by David Bowie while he was on the set of Black Star. And Black Star was filmed last July or last August of 2015. And here is the autograph I was able to acquire, and I feel lucky to be able to get that, but nothing can replace the late, the great, the legend, David Bowie. And I thank you, David Bowie, for all that you have given us. Rest in peace. Even after all that we know, this video is still a great mystery to me. If I come across anything new, I will share it. I just wanted to share this Tumblr information, the Kabbalah reference information, and the Elvis Presley Black Star connection. Elvis Presley's Black Star, images like this, perhaps the Kabbalah, are inspirations for Black Star, David Bowie's last album. I thank you for watching. This has been John Razimus with Occult Unmasked. Be seeing you.